Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Launch Code. I am your host for the moment, Baker Levitt, and my guest today is Logan Stark. We're here in San Antonio, Texas, in the podcast room, and JT and Matt and Evan are gone, and I just decided that I would steal all the equipment and do some interviews with some people that work at BlackRifle Coffee that I find interesting. And, what I'd like to talk about is things that to these guys are very, very common in their day-to-day lives, but to people like me and other people listening, trying to learn a little bit how some of this magic happens at BlackRifle. So we have Logan Stark, who is a former Marine, or is a Marine scout sniper.
Yeah, don't forget the scout.
Right. Yeah, he got lost on the way back.
I was trying to avoid traffic.
Right, and you took us to a cul-de-sac.
Well, yeah, I didn't know it was there.
So, Logan, what is your job title at BlackRifle?
Right now, it is the director of content.
Okay, and that's basically what we're going to try to touch on today.
Yeah, it's been a kind of constantly shifting thing, but I don't really worry too much about specific titles. It's
right, but just for the sake of conversation.
Director of content.
Okay. So how long have you been with BlackRifle?
3 years.
And
3 years now. It was right after, so I met everybody, Matt, Evan, Jared, JT, Marty, the weekend that the first BlackRifle video dropped on Facebook, which I hope a lot of our listeners remember, which was the hipster waterboarding commercial, which is kind of what put BlackRifle on the map originally.
And is that video accessible anywhere now, or?
Yeah, if you search it, like we, with the way that social media has kind of shifted and evolved over the years, we took it down off of our own. But you can still find it. It's still floating around.
Right, because the way that, the YouTube algorithm and stuff works and the way they censor stuff
Yeah, especially with what happened recently with YouTube, we got one strike for a video that had been up for a couple years that we did with Silencer HQ, and it was a bunch of guys shooting fully auto Glocks at a barrel that said "fuck hipster coffee," and we got a strike for that. So we kind of were like, "Oh, okay. Are they doing a clean sweep?" We didn't want to have, especially with Alex Jones just happening. We don't ever want that to happen to us, because these social media platforms are such a valuable asset for us that we'll play ball. It's not going to change who we are, but we kind of have to play ball, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I think Evan made a comment the other night on Drinking Bros podcast the other day, talking about the Alex Jones situation. And it's like, they're private companies. It's their rules. We don't have to agree with it, but we do have to play within their rules.
Yeah, we do. And we have to, if you're in the social media sphere of work, you are used to that already anyway,
Oh, yeah.
As good as anybody else. And I think we were kind of touched on this last night when we were kind of talking through this, is the number one most important thing if you're involved in social media is have the willingness to adapt every day. Right.
So, so my company, Digital Mongoose, I run social media for several outdoor companies, firearms companies, Kimber Firearms being my primary account, Mossberg, several other brands out there. And, it's interesting how there's, with a firearms company or things like that you have, I can't promote posts, I can't boost posts because of the terms.
Right. There's also these little niches within social media that you have to play differently. Also,
right.
Hunting is the same way.
Right. And, there's people that are like, oh, it's such bullshit, man. I can't run ads and da-da-da. It's like, well, okay, I can't run ads. However, what I can do is I can focus on ways to work around it. Like, how can I deliver a better product? How can I deliver better content? And we talked about last night, feeding the beast. So
right. And if you look specifically at two examples that BlackRifle has just posted to social media, most recently the crispy Omar Avila, It's Who We Are episode, and then also Instructor Earl. Both of those things have firearms featured in them very predominantly. The intro with Crispy is pretty much all firearms. Now, we were able to boost that. So it's not like if there is a firearm in a video, you cannot boost that. That's not the status quo for everything. But if you're promoting it's very easy for them to look at something and they're like, oh, well, I don't like this because it does this. That's what we're trying to avoid, because ultimately it comes down to some random stranger sitting in front of a desk who kind of has a lot of power.
Right, and you don't know what type of mood they're in.
Right.
So let's talk about, let's talk about primary social media platforms. So when you started with BlackRifle, and I started my company, I would say the primary was Facebook.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And that's where I got my start, really.
Right.
YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, so you could, if you walked around and took a poll of 1,000 people and asked them, do you have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, everyone's got a Facebook.
Everyone does. I feel like there's been this big shift away from personal usage of Facebook because it got a little bit too convoluted there for a little while.
Right.
And then Instagram is, if I had to surmise it in a very simple way, I would just say it's the fun platform.
Right.
I think people go to Instagram more than they do a lot of these other platforms because it's simple, it's easy to digest. If you don't want to digest certain parts of things, you don't have to. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to read or you don't have to scroll through a person's whole comments because of the way that they integrate it. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago when you were going through your feed, they didn't have like that little see more. And so if someone wrote a novel underneath their Instagram post, you saw all that and you had to scroll past that. And that's one of those kind of things, based off user interaction, they constantly change. Especially now, Instagram's algorithm is so interesting because they are really, based off how much you use the app, they are really serving you up content that they think you will like. So if you're only on Instagram for an hour, they are being super, super selective about the content that they feed up to you as opposed to it being a chronological format. Now, think about that for a second. Like, if you go on Instagram and all you're primarily doing is looking at girls' asses, like, that's what you're going to be fed. But if you're on it more of a longer period of time and you are experiencing a more diverse interaction with people, you're going to get more of that in the long run.
Yeah, so a way to put that into perspective is if you look at, like, let's say Instagram highlights. So there are certain Instagram accounts where you spend more time on their highlights than other Instagram accounts.
Well, I mean, that
and
whole
if
thing
you will
in general
notice,
is just such a good talking point. If
you'll notice, the Instagram accounts that you spend the most time on are the first ones in your highlight feed.
For stories?
Yeah.
Instagram
stories. I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant Instagram stories, not highlights.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So, like, every time I open up my personal Instagram account, BlackRifle, if the story has been updated, is the first thing to pop up.
Right.
Obviously, because I'm spending so much time interacting with that page. And that's the thing. But so there's movement behind that, right? So, like, once you refresh that app and you pull it up again, it shuffles. So it's attention grabbing right off the bat. Before you even get to that first post, you're seeing what's new, what's happening, and there's it's eye grabbing right away. That circle that's moving to the front.
Something new's up.
And that's that hits a lot of stimuli as far as our brain goes, because that's kind of why we open stuff up, is because we want to see what's going on and what this is the newest thing that's happening.
Right. So let's kind of quickly define the platforms, and I'll give you my take on the three primary platforms, and then you kind of tell me what you think about it. So Facebook, that's the most popular in the world.
What is it at now? 1 billion users?
Yeah.
That's
it's over 1 billion, I think. But that's the place where conversation takes place. So if you look at the way Facebook works, and that is where I would describe it as long form conversation and interaction occurs.
Second quarter of 2018, Facebook had 2.2 billion monthly active users.
It's a lot of people.
That is a shitload of people, man.
Yeah, that's
a quarter of the world.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So, in my opinion, Facebook is a place, a platform where conversations take place, and short, intermediate, and long form conversations take place. All right, Instagram, like you said, that's where photos are. It is visual stimulation. There's not a lot of really large, long, mid to long range, in-depth conversations taking place on Instagram. You're being fed stimuli.
Correct.
All right. Twitter, which I really feel sometimes I'm the only person that understands it.
I don't know. There's definitely been a Twitter resurgence, especially with Trump coming into office. And like, I don't know, like there's an entertaining factor to it now with like, okay, the man that's leading the free world is, that's
his chosen platform
he's just
to
firing off tweets at the rapid and like, okay, like I kind of want to just go and check that and see what's going on now. Another thing I love about Twitter is, the interactions between comedians. It's a very heavy usage platform amongst comedians, and it's kind of a platform in which I go to get a laugh every once in a while, as opposed to Instagram is not that. Like, the comedians post video clips to Instagram, sure, but like it's the opportunity to where you can really tell if somebody's quick. And quip is like if they can fire off.
Yeah, just
Twitter
don't read comments on Twitter if it's anything you're looking at political. But no, that's Twitter is the president of the United States' primary platform to distribute what's on his mind, unfiltered. You know exactly what's coming. It's also a place where media lives, news media, athletes, celebrities. It's designed as a micro blogging platform, and there's the largest migration from, I think, the 55 plus age demographic is migrating rapidly to Twitter.
Yes, and I will say, while it is not the most important factor in Twitter, I don't think you can have a conversation about Twitter without bringing the porn industry into it.
Absolutely,
because they're very uncensoring. And they allow people to do pretty much.
They're the only one that allowed Alex Jones to stay.
Yeah, so I think they're drawing also people to that app that aren't getting that type of content on the other platforms, and it's like, it's 100% happening a lot to where people are going to that platform to interact with that type of content.
Right.
And then it's spreading out from there, where if people are looking at Twitter more often, they're spreading out throughout the app. So it's an interesting move on their part.
I go to Twitter for my personal. I go to Twitter for news and current events, like, because you're not getting news and current events on Instagram. You're just not,
Right.
But I do like Twitter for that purpose. It's also, I think, what is it? It was 17.5% of all people that have social media accounts are on Twitter. So, like, I think, from a business perspective, you have to hit all platforms, because if you neglect Twitter, or, you hear a lot of people saying, oh man, screw Facebook, I'm done with this shit. So if you neglect any particular platform, you're missing a segment of society. And it's very important to hit everything.
I totally agree with that. I think like we've really clustered these into like the big three. If we put Instagram kind of under the Facebook umbrella, but YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook/Instagram, like those are the big three.
Right.
And there's not really any competition. Like we'll talk about Pinterest, and we had a conversation about LinkedIn last night, but those are, with as many people as are involved in these things, it's really interesting that everybody kind of lives within these three platforms.
Right. And then, you have your, what I would describe as outlier platforms, just because I don't know anything about them. I don't know that much about them yet. Your knowledge of YouTube is far, far superior of mine. Like, I don't know that I've ever posted a video to YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. And then you have Pinterest and LinkedIn and whatnot. What's your take? Well, let me say this before we get into that. People digest their content where they digest their content. Like, it's very rare that you can reroute someone. So like when people that have Instagram accounts, and I'm on Twitter and I see that they've linked Instagram to Twitter, to me that's a sign of laziness. I would never, ever click on an Instagram link from Twitter.
Yeah, if businesses aren't making and providing content towards specific platforms anymore, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
Right, and they're all different. The end user on each platform is completely different.
Absolutely.
And you have to cater, and you have to understand that, and you have to cater to them. Because like I said, people are going to digest their content where they digest their content. Twitter people are Twitter people. Instagram people are Instagram people. Facebook people are Facebook people. Now, let's talk about YouTube.
I love YouTube.
Okay, so tell me why.
Because to me, it's like going to the library. Like if I want information, if I want to learn something, if I want to dig super heavy and go down the rabbit hole on something, I'm going to YouTube. And that's the way that we've built BlackRifle's YouTube is, man, we'll entertain you and you can go back and you can see some old videos, but like we will inform you. We will give you a whole bunch of really awesome coffee knowledge. Like the way that our sort of ethos behind this is like, if you have a question, I want to have an answer already available to you on my library. And that's why I think YouTube is so amazing, and that you can 100% say they've owned the long format.
Hold on, what is long format?
I would say.
Hold on, what he's saying, what you mean by that is long format content.
Yeah. So just talking strictly as a time as the variable is content that's 6 minutes plus. Right now they're kind of sweet spots for content in the like I'll cite an example here in a second, but that sort of 8 to 12 minute time frame is kind of your sweet spot on YouTube right now. And they've got to find a way to separate themselves from these other platforms. Instagram, this quick digestible. Facebook's kind of like a middle ground. YouTube's is like, we want to keep people here for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think they're doing a great job at it.
Right. And also, like, for people listening, like, keep this in mind. These companies hate each other, okay? Because they're competing for eyeballs. And so, like I mentioned, I see, when you link an Instagram post to your Twitter, someone on Twitter, and the way Twitter looks at that is like there's an Instagram link. You're telling the person on Twitter, leave Twitter and go to Instagram. So Twitter is like, oh, these sons of bitches are trying to steal our customers. Because when someone leaves, the eyeballs leave the platform, the cash register shuts off. So, and I think, and I might be reading into this, but when you talk about long format with YouTube, I think the reasoning behind that is the longer the video, the longer the engagement, the longer that individual is on YouTube. Yeah, and not going somewhere else.
Yeah, and they shifted their analytics towards like views. As far as YouTube goes, views isn't the most important thing anymore. It's minutes watched. So that's why. Along with the shift, not really shift, but just more of a cementation towards this long form content that's what YouTube wants companies to look at, that statistic as far as minutes watched. And like we're making that move, and we've been prepping for this for a little while, but that vlog style content, the behind the scene type stuff, you're going to see a lot more of that type of content from us in the future. And, and it also fits well into exactly what we're doing right now as far as the podcast stuff goes. All of these, it's a really good opportunity. So if you're recording for an hour, 2 hours, Rogan's up to 3, maybe plus at some time.
I don't know that I could talk for 3 hours.
Well, I think that, like, how rare is it that you sit down with someone and you have a 3-hour conversation with them?
Like dead sober? Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, right?
Now,
but if you do have a 3-hour conversation, it's a good conversation. Like
right.
you are happy to engage in that, like sacrificing that 3 hours of your day because you're having fun. You're getting good information out of you. You like telling certain stories. You like getting information from that person. But that's not really, you're not going to necessarily watch. A lot of people don't watch 3-hour long videos on YouTube, but having the opportunity to take 7 to 12 minute clips from your, sections of your podcast that are sort of highlights, put those together. Like Rogan's got thousands up
right
at this point.
It's funny because like I'd say I don't know anything about YouTube, but you mentioned the like instructional component to YouTube, and unbeknownst to me, I actually do spend a lot of time on YouTube. Because I Google stuff like how to do things or how things work, because I'm big into figuring things out on my own. Like if Evan's like, "Hey man, can you look into this?" or whatever, it's like, all right, well, I'm certainly not going to ask him how it works. So, but like now, the more I think about it, I do spend a good bit of time.
Yeah,
on YouTube.
well, I mean, just think about it.
But I don't ever go to like I'm going to go to YouTube to look at stuff. I'm always directed to YouTube through Google.
Yeah, I don't 100% quote me on this, but I believe it is the second most used search engine on the internet now.
YouTube?
Yeah.
I would believe that.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think
Dave just gave you. Dave has his bottom lip is stuck out.
Yeah.
He gave
the
chin shimmy.
Yeah. So so you want to learn something, right? Or you're like, man, I just got some Axis meat, and I want to learn how to cook it.
Which is what we had for dinner last night.
And it's so delicious.
Everything. So I, for those listening that don't know me, I'm an avid hunter. In 2017, I hunted in 11 states and 2 countries. I'm not like some super badass hunter like John Dudley. I'm avid. It's a hobby. I really enjoy it. I spend a lot of time doing it. I know how to cook a lot of wild game. I have freezers full of it. And I watched Logan in his brand new house in his little cast iron skillet. Everything you did from the time you pulled that meat out of the freezer until the time you put it on a plate, I disagreed with. Well, that's not how you do that. That's not how you thaw it out. That's not how you cook it. That's not how you season it. I didn't tell you, but in my head, I'm like, oh, Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
I could feel you being skeptical.
I was judging. I was judging you. Absolutely. I had on a white wig. I was passing judgment. And I can say this straight-faced. That is one of the best wild game meats I've ever eaten in my life. Axis deer.
Yeah.
And it is, without a doubt, the most beautiful meat. And it's probably weird for those of you to hear someone say that meat is beautiful, but it's just the coloring, everything about that was out of this world. So anyway, back to how you learn how to cook it.
Well, that's one thing that I've really become passionate about in the recent past is just meat and game meat in particular. Like it's extremely interesting to me. I want to know so much more about it. But say I did want to learn something in regards to that, so you've got kind of your options as far as reading and consuming video content. Just from a stimulus point, I can watch, listen, engage with, as opposed to reading something that feels like more along the lines of work. You're not being visually stimulated. And I think most people would lean towards, it's like reading directions versus watching a video. You know what I mean? Like you're going to shift towards that engaging video content as opposed to wanting to read an article most of the time, I think.
And there's something for everyone. Like I don't by any stretch of the imagination think that I'm a master of Twitter or anything. Like I don't. I think I've put a lot of time into Twitter. So that's one of the things that I do with BlackRifle is I do help with the Twitter. And, like I look at you and Matt and JT and everything, and it's like, okay, these guys have Instagram on lockdown and Facebook on lockdown. The videos absolutely kill it. And so I was thinking, I was like, how can I bring value to the team? And so what I try to find opportunity that's maybe not getting as much attention as I think it probably should. So that being said, started with BlackRifle Twitter. I think it was January of 2017. And, I don't know if I'm at liberty to see how many impressions we did, but between BlackRifle.
No, I don't care. I think it's important to throw numbers out there because, ultimately a huge part of this company is data driven.
Right.
And knowing what those numbers are, like that's how we justify the means,
Right.
or
so
the
I mean,
work
and the
towards.
point in that is, so like I'll say my top 3, I'll say top 4 accounts that I manage social. Kimber being one of them. BlackRifle Twitter. I don't touch any of the other social platforms. I help with the Twitter. 13 million impressions. Okay, that's a lot. 13
million impressions.
Yeah, across 3 accounts. Combined, if you combined,
you're talking about Baker Levitt's little reach here.
Yeah. No, with the brands that I work with on Twitter. So that being said, like I needed to learn how to do something on Twitter. There was a component of running longer form video on Twitter, and I thought I should really know how to do this.
Well,
let me finish. So I'm seeing it. I'm seeing other companies do it, and it's funny you mentioned porn because you see tons of long porn videos on Twitter, and you might see those if you look for them. But I looked up how to upload longer videos, and it was a guy that did a step-by-step process of literally showing the icon on the screen on YouTube, and I was like, "Holy cow!" it was so simple and so much faster to learn it that way as opposed to reading, click on this, then click on this, then click on this, whatnot. So it's like the instructional tutorial component that you're talking about. Like there's some things my reading comprehension is off the charts. There's other things my reading comprehension is like subhuman, you know. So it's a healthy it's a healthy balance between reading and visual. There's some things you can learn easier visually, and there's some things you can learn more effectively by reading them. And that's just an example of how it really helped me with something that I really know a lot about, you know.
Yeah, and something that's extremely interesting to me specifically right now is all of as far as impression. And so let me just clarify, because I know the impressions engagement. Like if you don't live in the social media world, you don't know. You're like I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But if you do, you have a good grasp on it, but you may not have 100%. But like the way I view it, and I always try and break it down to the most simplistic point, but an impression is an eyeball.
Right.
Like something that you posted came across someone's eyeball at some point in their experience on social media. And that's kind of across the board with these platforms. Like an impression is kind of the same thing, you know. Engagement is pretty much what it sounds like, you know, someone engaged, whether that was a like, a share, a comment,
A double tap. Yeah.
Whatever.
Liking a comment.
So that's kind of the two big terms that are constantly.
And then another
set
one is
across
reach. What is reach? Define that for the listeners.
So that is, I think I look at reach as more of like, it's kind of an impression, but it's like the total amount of
What's possible.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, and this is just my definition, reach is what is obtainable out there.
Yeah, so reach is interesting. So let's use Facebook as an example, right? So Instructor Earl is sitting at 1.5 million 1.5 million views. And then we got to talk about a view, because different platforms define a view a different way. And usually it was like, you know, it was 10 seconds.
But originally it was 15. So
Right.
it went from 15 to 10.
It was originally that. And then, sorry, I'm just looking up some stats real
So
quick.
originally it was 15, and then it went to 10. They also have a new mechanism that shows you the number of 3-second views.
Right. So specifically, we're gonna look at the latest video, It's Who We Are with that we just posted with Crispy. So I'm looking at the numbers here. We're looking at just under 900,000 people reached, right? So that's people that had this video show up across their feed.
Right.
Of that, just under 900,000, it's got 350,000 views right now. So basically,
the video itself has
350,000 views.
I thought you were talking about the
just getting between a reach versus a view. So a reach is kind of the same as an impression. When I think of reach in terms of Instagram, it's how many accounts did you reach?
Right.
That's how they define reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's more people that had you come across them.
Right.
And then impressions is the total encompassing number.
The way that, let's say I'm going to talk as a layperson, or someone that doesn't do what you and I do for a living. What that means is the reach was, I'm going to round up for the sake of conversation, 900,000.
Yep.
Of that 900,000, we'll say 400,000 watched it. So what that tells you is that 900,000 people had the opportunity to click on this.
Or hover.
And then from that, you can say, okay, well, we basically reached just under half of those people. What could we have done differently to really capture 100% of the eyeballs? You know what I mean? So you can look at it many, many different ways. And right now we're kind of talking about Facebook. For me, that says this was your opportunity and this was the opportunity you captured. I don't know what the industry average is. I'm sure it's probably 10% at best, you know, if that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just for those listening, that's a hammer. Like that crushes. Like,
yeah. That's when we get, if I get 20% view to impression.
Capture to reach, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm happy with that. The Crispy videos sitting quite a bit higher than that. I'm really happy with that.
Yeah.
Because it means that when our stuff shows up on their feed, they're stopping.
Right.
And that's ultimately the most important thing.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, these guys are putting out good stuff. I want to see what's going on.
And that's just what, we've always done that well. We just want to continue to do that well, and then kind of,
and then like it's an inexact science. I mean, it really is.
It's like what?
It's an inexact science. Like you can honestly think you have it dialed. And like you and I talked about this last night. Like I on Kimber's Instagram, for example, I have photos that I've been like, oh my God, dude, this is money. This thing's going to kill it. This photo is going to crush. And you put it up on a Thursday primetime, and it performs. It's your worst post of 2 weeks, And then you have something that's like, oh crap, I forgot to post this. I need to throw something up. I'm throwing something. This happened to me last Sunday. No, Sunday before last. I threw something up at an off-peak hour, and I didn't. I was like, I needed to get this thing up, but I'm 4 hours behind schedule. Top performing post of the month, second most comments of the year. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
But like 2 days before, or 3 days before, on Thursday, I was like, this is going to hammer, And then, and you don't know what's going on in people's lives. You don't know what's going on in the country.
Correct.
Are there other events? Are there other distractions? Like there's just it's just and a lot of people, would look at something like that and just like kind of like throw their hat up in the air, throw their hands in the air and get pissed. But it's like, I like it, man, because it keeps me on my toes. And it's like, you're constantly trying to figure out ways to work within the system that complaining about it, saying, this is bullshit, my First Amendment rights. That's not going to do a damn thing for anybody, man.
Yeah.
So you constantly have to try and stay ahead of the curve.
It comes full circle back to what the sort of the staple in which I abide by when I think about my job, which is adapt every day. Never, ever rest on your laurels, because that's when you're going to get stale. That's when your engagement's going to start to go down. Like, you really have to try and do new things all the time, and then really define who you are.
Right. And one other thing. New things are not instantaneously accepted. They're not. And what I mean by that is, so let's say, I think BlackRifle, I've been around BlackRifle for years now, and the humor-based stuff, humor, like everyone loved that stuff. Everybody loves to laugh. And then as the company grew and the brand grew, it was, and there was an education component that needed to take place. Like, other than, hey, it's just coffee. No, I mean, like, it's time to educate people on what coffee is and all the equipment and gear, brewing processes that you guys use. You have to teach people about them, because like I look at that and it's like, man, you hear me when I walk in, it's like, man, isn't there just like some like push button pot? So you put up your first instructional video, and it's not going to blow up.
Yeah.
But you have to stay with it.
Yeah.
And you have to, it's, hey, we still got the funny humor guys here, but hey, we want you to come along this journey with us. So we're going to educate you, because we want you to know and love coffee the way we do.
Yeah. And it directly relates back to the pillars of BlackRifle. Provide a good quality product, entertain, and inform. Like, that's us. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. Like, that's who we are. And like, you've been staying with me these last couple of days in Texas, and you watch me make coffee in my
About
Chemex,
to be your roommate.
And we'll see.
Come on now.
You watch me make coffee in my Chemex, and you're like, this is so dumb. Like, what are you doing? This is way too complicated.
Where's the push button thing?
And then you try the coffee, and you're like, oh, okay. All right. So what you're doing is worth it, even though it takes a little bit more time. Why is that? Right. But there's this question that arrives, and like, we need to answer those questions. Why do I need to go down this rabbit hole? What do I get out of it?
No, it's interesting. Like, I've always said, like, the massive amount of time I've spent with you guys. I'm 5'10". I'm 240 pounds. I'm from Georgia. I'm a knuckle dragging meathead redneck. I don't have a sophisticated palate, Like, I like to think that intellectually I'm sophisticated, but I just kind of cruise through life knocking shit over.
I'm just a dumb grunt.
Hey, I'm jealous. And you don't ever know what you don't know. And I remember we were
very good statement.
Yeah, it's based on common sense. I got a lot of good statements. But Evan made a comment to me one time about like a K-cup. He's like, "Oh, this is a K-cup coffee. You can taste the plastic." And I was like, "Fucking A, man, you're right. Damn it." So now every time I have a K-cup, Keurig, I taste the plastic. It drives me crazy. Because I was a guy that would drink 3-4 cups of coffee in the morning. And now like the way that you make it and the way Evan makes it, it's a higher quality brew. It's a higher quality product. I don't find myself drinking as much because I'm getting a better cup of coffee, you know?
Yeah. Really interesting thing I'm digging into right now. Another beauty of social media is how quickly we can get and spread information, really quality information. I'm still digging into it, but I'm going to throw this up on the BlackRifle story later today. Is the U.S. Army actually just did a study linking caffeine consumption timing and amount to productivity and attention towards doing certain tasks. And what they found is that there's not really the more caffeine that you drink doesn't necessarily mean more energy and more, like, you can actually consume a very specific amount of caffeine at a certain time, and that is kind of your sweet spot.
Right.
And that's so you can overconsume caffeine, obviously, but caffeine does help, like 100%. There's no argument about that.
It's like fish oil. Like, I would say caffeine, fish oil, creatine, whey protein. It's highly those are like the real things that are out there. So this is a sidebar. Like I compete in powerlifting. I'm a pretty strong guy, and one of my really good friends, John Welburn, talking about pre-workout supplements and stuff. There is no better pre-workout for all these people listening that are buying all the pre-workout powders with 7,300 different ingredients that you don't even know how to pronounce, much less understand. The one component to all pre-workout is anhydrous caffeine. That's all that matters. It's the caffeine content in the pre-workout. That's all it is. All that other shit, branched chain amino acids.
What makes you all tingly?
Beta-alanine.
Yeah.
That's a ride, brother.
Yeah,
that's a ride.
Yeah, it is. If you don't have that, if you don't take pre-workout for a little while, you have it again, you're like, oh.
No, but when I take it, I take beta-alanine just in pill form.
Yeah.
Just because it's fun. It feels fun. That's the only reason. But honest God, you could take, for those of you that work out, exercise, I'll challenge you to try for once, take 2 shots of espresso, scoop of whey protein, scoop of amino acids, put it in a shaker bottle, and try that for 30 days as a pre-workout. It's much cleaner. It's much more efficient. It's much more effective and that is something that is information that's out on the internet, and that's how you can find it.
Yeah. And that's something I want to dig into a little bit deeper. And we've got a couple of videos in the works, but, just getting into the science. Like, we've been, if you go through our YouTube, we've been very instructionally minded, over the summer, coming out of, Q2 and Q3, just trying to get knowledge out there, and that will shift over towards more of like a why coffee. Like, we want to answer the why coffee question.
I dig that. That's pretty cool.
In a multitude of different ways, because especially the deeper I get into the weeds on coffee, there's nothing really bad about it. It's actually the more information that's coming out is how good it is. Yeah. And we're finding out new stuff. So it's really interesting. It's really fun. And then to come up with fun, interesting ways to portray that information to our audience is, it's part of your life every single day. Right. If you drink coffee, you'd probably drink it every single day, at least once a day.
Yeah. It's also interesting. It's like, to someone that, like we'd say, like, it's not into the social world the way we are, like creating it and providing it. Like, there's an art, man, and I've never thought about this till you just said that a second ago. There is a very fine art, and you may not realize this, how to make education entertaining. To where
infotainment, we call it.
What is it?
Infotainment.
Infotainment?
Yep.
Do I have a trademark on that?
No, should we?
Let me text Christine to go ahead and have her file that for me right now. But no, it's like, you taught me when we first started hanging out, like consumable, easily digestible, shareable content is king.
Yeah. So one thing that one of the major sources of inspiration for me coming into this whole business, starting to get into YouTube, was there's this content creator. His name's Casey Neistat, and he was kind of the pioneer of this run and gun, handheld, don't really give a shit type of content. And I've adopted a lot of, like, I think the original AeroPress video that I did with the overhead camera rig was dumping the thing out, making it as quick as possible, beat it to some music. Like, that video was not interesting outside of the cuts and the beats to it and pairing it with this music like I'm making a cup of coffee. It's not that interesting. But the video like within a short period of time, like it had 80,000 views. Like that's, the YouTube channel at that time was like, I don't know, 20,000 subscribers maybe. So like hitting 800% of your audience, like that's a win, man.
I had two videos on Kimber in 1 month. One was a amethyst, which is one of the 1911s, and the other one was a sapphire. And scout sniper over here, you would look at it and be like, oh man, that's a girly gun. It's blue, it's sapphire. It's a beautiful gun aesthetically. And the amethyst is purple lavender.
Yeah, I remember this one. It ended up getting a couple million views.
Dude. 6.5.
And how simple was it?
It was shot on an iPhone. It was literally a person holding a gun in their hand and flipping it over and kind of showing the gun.
Yep.
Holding the phone with one hand, holding the gun with the other. 6.5 million views on the other, on one, and 4.5. And I did that. Those were both like within, like one happened 1 week, the other happened the following week. And I was just like, whoa. But what's interesting is like I can, and we gained on the Kimber Facebook page, we gained 43,000 followers that month. Dude, I caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just hold on that. 43,000 new followers.
New
like,
Facebook followers.
Dude,
that's hold on. That's not wrong. That's low. It was 59,000 new followers in a 45-day period because those videos kept running and running and running.
Right.
They still get interaction.
And that's something about Facebook's algorithm isn't so flash in the pan anymore. It does. Your content does have a little bit longer. Legs.
Because it's like the video views on like the like Instructor Earl. Like we talked that morning and I was like, wow, man, it's been up 2 hours and it's done a couple 100,000 views. Like I thought it would be at 800,000, and then I was like, wait a minute, hold on, it's a little different now. It runs, give it 24 hours.
Yeah, and it's really nice as we're moving forward to have past examples where we've had great success, and then be able to like we always play the prediction game. And I remember the night before. We were all out at dinner, and Matt and I was, let's guess how many this is going to get. And Matt won that one. I thought Instructor Earl was going to get a lot. The Facebook algorithm changed at the beginning of this year, and it's kind of gone through a couple different iterations. But the potential for a video to go viral is super low now compared to what it used to be in the past. And he said he thought it would do like 3, and that's probably what it'll do over the next little while here. But, going back to the Christmas Carol Facebook video, I think he predicted that one at 5. I predicted 10 to 12 million, and it ended up getting 38 million. So like, it's still a shit show, man. Like, and that's what kind of makes this fun. And that's why you have to try new stuff. And
you have to think long-term. Like you can't, like for people that are like, starting a business or whatever, and social media, man, it doesn't happen overnight. Like it's not a grind. That's a negative connotation, but social media, like building and running platforms, it takes time. Like, like go ahead and set aside in just a year minimum to see if you can gain traction, because it takes time, and it can change, dude, in a flash of a pan. Like you could be nothing, and then the next day you're everything. You just can't walk away. You just have to keep putting out content, seeing what your audience likes, and continue to refine and improve what you're doing and get better. And you can't do the same thing over and over and over, because it just becomes repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I got to run, because we're going to have a little content ideation session on the follow-up.
Yeah, so for those of you listening, this was the first of hopefully several more of these types of...
with the new Launch Code co-host, Baker Levitt.
Yeah.
I'll probably be jumping on these quite a bit more, too.
Yeah, but I think, I think this one we just kind of chatted, and I think that, we can do another one and kind of dig down into the individual platforms, talk more about Facebook. Something that, you do that I don't do is you build and make videos and stuff. It's not my bag. But it would be interesting to sit down and talk, like, what goes into Instructor Earl? How did that happen? Because as a consumer, it's like, oh man, it looks like they just like got up a camera.
I would love to talk about that. I think it's
they
important.
got a camera and told some jokes, man, and did some funny stuff and done. But what doesn't go into consideration is how long it took to film, how many iterations, writing the script, and then post-production, which no one understands that's not in the space. And that's where the work takes place, right? The post-production. Yeah,
absolutely. You can count on it to be at least, it'd take you 3 times. 3x is generally the method that I go. So like, when I'm getting quotes from video creators, generally their edit times are going to be about 3 times as much as.
And you get what you pay for in that space.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. I'm Baker Levitt. This is Logan Stark, and thank you for listening to Launch Code.